We are proceeding apace with your problem statement expository essay. Today we're going to talk about how to seamlessly include evidence in your writing, and we're going to talk about how to correctly format paragraphs using the acronym MEAL. And let's do a quick review of the expository essay. This is the first installment in the longer problem solution essay. The purpose of this essay is to describe, explain, and or inform on the topic that you're going to expound upon and argue on in your final essay, okay, which is the problem solution essay. For this essay, you're going to identify the problem, collect, evaluate, and report information in order to identify potential solutions that will be examined in the larger essay at the very end. So our objective here is that by researching and writing about the problem, we will gain a better understanding of the issue and how to address it. All right, let's talk about the meal plan. All right, this is an acronym that stands for main idea, cite evidence, analysis, and lead out. This is a way to organize your paragraphs as you write, and it helps you guys to create strong, thorough paragraphs. So M is main idea, and this is also known as your paragraph's topic sentence. Some key characteristics of a strong topic sentence are that it announces the paragraph's topic, which means you let the reader know exactly what the paragraph is going to be about, presents a controlling idea, and it is clear and specific, and it links to the thesis. This is key right here. Remember that in every paragraph, your topic sentence should lead back to the thesis, and that's how you are sure that your essay is linear and is sticking to the point. Let's talk about the E and the A of the meal plan. And I have these two together because you can never have one of these without the other. They go together, kind of like they're married. So you have to cite evidence. Once your readers are clear on the main topic of your paragraph, you're going to use source material to discuss your topic and promote your argument. But then you can never, ever, ever cite evidence without analyzing and giving your own interpretation of that evidence. So you're going to explain, incorporate, and integrate the evidence by providing some analysis of your own. And this analysis is in your own words, from your own mind. This is not a quote to support another quote. I just want to make that clear. Okay? Check out this example here. The quote burger. Notice that the upper bun has the context and background. That's the who is speaking and to whom. Then the meat, that's the actual quotation, and it should be accurate and properly cited. And then the bun, this is the connection or support, the so what element. This is the part where you analyze and you explain to your readers why the quote you chose is relevant and how it supports your thesis. So here is an example of the quote burger using an actual quote. Notice that how when I cite evidence, I introduce the citation with context and background, and then I immediately follow that with my own analysis in my own words. All right, let's switch gears real quick because I want to sit here for a little while and discuss how you are to seamlessly incorporate your E and your A from your meal plan. Okay. How do we put the quote and the analysis in the paragraph in a way that is smooth and seamless and in a way that helps the essay to flow? Take a look at this picture right here. If you were paying for countertops, which one would you rather have and why? So there are many creative ways to include quotes in your essays. You can lead into the quote with a colon. For example, Hamlet denies Rosencrantz' claim that thwarted ambition causes depression, colon. I could be bounded in a nutshell and count myself a king of infinite space. You can use a speech tag, such as Hamlet denies Rosencrantz' claim that thwarted ambition causes depression. He states, you can split the quote. There is nothing either good or bad, Hamlet argues, but thinking makes it so. You can also blend the quote. When Hamlet tells Rosencrantz that he could be bounded in a nutshell and count himself king of infinite space, he implies that thwarted ambition did not cause his depression. Blending quotes for me is my favorite way to incorporate quotes in analysis because you get a chance to incorporate the quotes that you're using directly into your own sentence, and it makes for a much smoother flow and transition. Take a look at this quote here. Now take a look at this one here. Which one is correct? The second one is correct. The first one is incorrect. And it's not incorrect just because it's short. It's incorrect because it literally drops the quote in a fashion that I call ghost quoting, okay? Because it has nothing connecting it to the thesis or your thoughts, okay? You have to make sure that you are incorporating the quotes in a way that allows your reader to understand why it's there, okay, what point you're trying to make, and where it comes from. It's necessary to do that with more than just an in-text citation. You want to introduce this Herman fellow. What is and who is Herman 33? Okay. So you want to identify who the speaker of the quote is to give your reader some context. And then you want to smoothly incorporate the quote into your paragraph with transition sentences and using your own words. Paraphrasing is another way you can incorporate source information into your paragraphs. When you cite evidence by paraphrasing, you keep the same meaning of the original text, but you restate the meaning in a way that makes sense to you or in a way that edifies the context for your reader. Make sure that you read the text carefully so that you understand the text fully, because how can you make sure your reader understands it if you don't? Put the original text aside and write it in your own words, considering each point of the original text and how you would rephrase it or how you would say it if you were explaining it to one of your classmates. This is a good chance to consider who your audience is. Do not simply replace every third or fourth word in the original passage. This is a form of plagiarism. It's called cut and paste plagiarism. And of course, review your paraphrase. Does it reflect the original text, but is it in your own words and style? Did you include all the main points and essential information? The goal here is to keep the integrity, okay, of the quote, okay, while putting it or explaining it in your own words. Now, that being said, when you paraphrase, you must still, I'll repeat, you must still analyze. Paraphrasing is a form of citing evidence. Paraphrasing itself is not analysis. So after you paraphrase, you must still analyze. If you have trouble with that, ask yourself the following questions. What am I trying to show or prove with this information? Why is it important to what I am saying? What is the significance? How does this information add to what I'm trying to prove in this paragraph? Here, so that you can take a look at the following example of a paraphrase. You have the original paragraph from Nancy Wolflock's book, Women and the American Experience, A Concise History. And then you have a paraphrase in APA citation. Obviously, you guys are doing MLA, but I'm using this because it's a really good example of a paraphrase. So I'll pause here and give you a chance to read them both. Now let's talk about summarizing. And I'm talking about summarizing so that I can juxtapose it with paraphrasing. Okay. Summarizing should not be used in an academic essay unless you are specifically being asked to summarize. A summary does not serve as textual evidence. Okay. Unfortunately, a lot of students don't really understand the difference between paraphrasing and summarizing. And that's why I'm going to explain it now. Okay. So when summarizing, you start by reading a text and highlighting the main points as you read. You reread the text and make notes of the main points, leaving out examples, evidence, etc. Without the text, rewrite your notes in your own words, restating the main idea at the beginning of your summary, plus all the major points. Include a conclusion or final findings of the work, and of course, included in text citation. So the difference is that a paraphrase restates the meaning of the text, but a summary just gets to the main point. There's no real interpretation there. Okay? It just gets straight to the main point or the main idea of a text. And notice just how much shorter a summary is compared to the main text. So, one of the ways you know that you're doing a good job with summarizing is that your summary ends up being a condensed version, okay, of what was said. Right here, so that you can take a look at the graphic just to help you out a little bit more. You can take a screenshot of this if you need to and save it. All right, so back to our original acronym. This is the L, meaning this is the closing of your paragraph, the lead out. This is the sentence that is used to close out a paragraph in a succinct way. Rule number one, never, ever, ever end a paragraph with a quote. Okay. And it's also not sufficient to end a paragraph on your own analysis. You actually have to come up with a closing for the paragraph that summarizes the main points you've made in the paragraphs and helps to lead in to the next paragraph. A lot of students struggle with paragraph writing because they're not quite sure how to make the different parts of a paragraph flow one to the next, right? So you have your your main idea or your topic sentence, and then you have to cite evidence and analyze that evidence and then give a succinct closing to the paragraph. Sometimes it's hard to do that in a way that is smooth and doesn't feel choppy. And so for that reason, I'm giving you a list of transition words that can help you. Using transition words here is really key to having your ideas flow smoothly from one to the next, or having the different parts of a paragraph flow seamlessly from one to the next. And you can use these transition words within paragraphs, in between sentences, and when transitioning from one paragraph to the next. Here are a few more things to note when writing paragraphs and incorporating evidence. When quoting, you must use quotation marks around the quote. In text citations, go after the closing quotation mark and before the ending punctuation, like the example you see below. In MLA format, if you have given the name of the person when introducing the quote, you only need the page number in the in-text citation, and if there is no page number, then you don't need anything. That's the power of correctly and properly setting up a quote. When paraphrasing, you don't need quotation marks, but you still need an in-text citation. You want to avoid weak language such as I think or in my opinion, and you don't want to ask questions of the reader because you don't want your reader forming your opinions or making your argument for you. Finally, a well-organized paragraph will need at least one piece of evidence, to support the main idea. But you are free to add as many pieces of relevant evidence as necessary to develop your ideas. For example, some professors might ask that you use 3 quotes or pieces of evidence per paragraph, and in that case, remember the golden rule, you cannot E, give evidence, and not A, analyze. These two are married. They must go together. So for every piece of evidence you give in a paragraph, you must give your own analysis and interpretation. So the structure will look like MEA, EA, EAL. I'm giving my main idea, then evidence number 1, analysis number 1, evidence number 2, analysis number 2, evidence number 3, analysis number 3, and then leading out with a succinct closing summary. I want to go over the peer review process since I've made some changes. From now on, you're going to be utilizing the ACSS Writing Center for peer review. And I've already spoken with Dr. Ashburn and the tutors in the Writing Center, and they are ready, willing, and waiting to help you. I've enrolled you in the ACSS Writing Center course. That is where you will submit the rough draft of your essays from now on. You'll have them reviewed by a tutor, and then the tutor will get back to you within 2 days of you submitting your first draft. Since the tutors are going to be using Google Docs to provide feedback, please don't submit PDFs when you submit your first draft in the ACSS Writing Center course. That's just to make things a little bit easier for both you and our wonderful tutors who are taking the time to help you out. Thank you. I sincerely hope you found this information helpful. Please remember that you have resources and notes to review that break down this information even further. Please actually review them, because if you listen to the lectures, annotate the lectures, and review the notes, you can't miss, okay? And then, of course, I'm here to help you and clarify anything if ever you need. All right, you guys, see you in class.